found out my husband was having an affair with my best friend, divorced him, and cut her off completely. Years later, they both came crawling back. Everything seemed normal that Tuesday morning when my husband Marcus left for his business trip to Seattle, hugging me tight and promising to call every night like he always did. We had been married for 8 years, and I genuinely believed we had the kind of relationship other couples envied. No major fights, just the usual disagreements about whose turn it was to take out the trash or what to watch on Netflix. He worked as a senior software engineer at a tech company making good money, and I was a third-grade teacher at the local elementary school. We had bought our dream house 2 years ago in the suburbs with a beautiful backyard where we planned to raise kids someday. Life felt stable, predictable, and honestly a little boring in the best way possible. But all of that was about to come crashing down in the most unexpected way, and the person who would destroy everything was someone I had trusted completely for years. The first sign something was wrong came on Wednesday evening when I was making dinner and heard Marcus's phone buzz on the kitchen counter. He had forgotten it was charging there, and normally I would never look at his messages because privacy and trust were things we both valued. But the preview on the lock screen made my blood run cold. It was from my best friend Rachel, and it said, "Last night was incredible. I can't stop thinking about your hands on me. When are you back? I need you again." My heart started pounding so hard I thought I might pass out. My hands were shaking as I picked up his phone and stared at those words, trying to make them mean something else, anything else. But there was no other interpretation. Rachel, my best friend since college, the woman who had been my maid of honor, the person I called when I needed advice about everything from work drama to what color to paint the living room, was talking about being intimate with my husband. And she was talking about last night, but Marcus was supposed to be in Seattle, unless he wasn't. I felt like the floor had disappeared beneath me, and I was falling through space with nothing to grab onto. My mind raced through every interaction, every dinner party, every game night where the three of us had laughed together, and I started seeing things differently now. All those times Rachel touched Marcus's arm while talking, all those inside jokes they seemed to share, all those moments she volunteered to give him a ride when his car was in the shop, suddenly took on a sinister meaning. I wanted to throw up. I wanted to scream. I wanted to call him immediately and demand answers. But instead I did something that surprised even myself. I became completely calm and calculating. If they were betraying me, I needed to know everything before confronting them so I could protect myself and make sure they couldn't lie their way out of it. Here's what you need to understand about Rachel and me. We met during freshman orientation at university when we both showed up to the same dorm room thinking we were roommates, only to discover there had been a housing mix-up. We laughed about it and decided to grab coffee together. That coffee turned into an 8-hour conversation about everything from our childhoods to our dreams for the future. We were inseparable after that. Survived terrible boyfriends, supported each other through family drama, celebrated every achievement together. And when I met Marcus during my junior year, Rachel was the first person I told about him. She encouraged me to go for it, said he seemed like a great guy, and was genuinely happy when we started dating seriously. She even helped me pick out my wedding dress and threw me the most amazing bridal shower. I truly believed she was the sister I never had, which made this betrayal cut even deeper than Marcus's infidelity somehow. I sat there in my kitchen staring at that text message for what felt like hours, but was probably only minutes, trying to figure out my next move. I couldn't just confront them without proof. They would deny everything, or worse, try to gaslight me into thinking I was crazy and overreacting. I needed concrete evidence, something undeniable. So I made a decision that would change everything. I was going to unlock his phone and dig through every message, every email, every photo until I knew the complete truth. His passcode was easy because we had shared it years ago during a road trip when I needed to change the music and he was driving. We had that kind of trust, or at least I thought we did. My fingers trembled as I typed in the numbers and the phone unlocked, revealing his home screen with a photo of us from our anniversary dinner last month. Both of us smiling like we didn't have a care in the world. What a joke that seemed now. What I found in his phone over the next 2 hours made me physically ill. There were hundreds of messages between Marcus and Rachel going back almost 6 months. 6 months of lies and deception right under my nose. The early messages started innocent enough, just friendly chatter about a work project Rachel was helping Marcus with, some freelance graphic design for a presentation his company was doing. Then the messages got flirtier, with Rachel complimenting his ideas and Marcus telling her how creative and talented she was. By month 3 they were meeting for coffee, then lunch, then drinks, and the messages turned explicitly sexual, discussing what they wanted to do to each other and making plans to meet up whenever they could. I discovered that Marcus had never actually gone to Seattle for business. He had checked into a hotel downtown, less than 20 minutes from our house, and spent 2 days there with Rachel while I sat at home like an idiot believing his lies and actually missing him. But wait, because it gets so much worse than you could possibly imagine. As I kept scrolling through the messages, I found something that made me realize this wasn't just a physical affair. This was emotional betrayal on a level I didn't think was possible. Rachel had been telling Marcus things about me, personal things I had shared with her in confidence, complaining about habits I had, my insecurities, my fears, and Marcus had been agreeing with her. They mocked me together, laughed about how naive I was, made jokes about how I was too boring in bed, too focused on work, too obsessed with planning everything. One message from Rachel said, "I don't know how you deal with her constant need to have everything perfect all the time." And Marcus responded, "Trust me, it's exhausting. Sometimes I just want to be with someone who knows how to let loose and have fun, someone like you." They were bonding over their mutual disdain for me while I was preparing dinners, doing his laundry, supporting his career, and thinking we were building a life together. I took screenshots of everything, sent them to my email address, and then carefully placed his phone back exactly where he had left it charging on the counter. My hands had stopped shaking now, replaced by a cold fury that settled into my bones like ice. I wasn't going to cry. I wasn't going to fall apart. I was going to be strategic about this, because both of them were about to learn that underestimating me was the biggest mistake they would ever make. I finished making dinner even though I had no appetite and sat at our dining room table eating alone while I planned my next moves. The first thing I needed to do was protect myself financially. I logged into our joint bank account and saw that Marcus had been withdrawing cash regularly over the past few months, probably spending it on hotel rooms and gifts for Rachel. We had about $40,000 in savings that we were accumulating for a down payment on a bigger house someday, plus another $15,000 in a separate emergency fund. I transferred half of all of it into a new account I opened in just my name. Legally, I was entitled to it, and I wasn't going to let him drain our finances to support his affair. Next, I called a divorce attorney first thing Thursday morning and scheduled a consultation for that afternoon. I told my principal I had a family emergency and needed a personal day, which wasn't technically a lie. The attorney was a sharp woman in her 50s named Patricia who had been recommended by a colleague whose sister had gone through a messy divorce. She listened to my story, looked through the screenshots I had brought, and told me I had an incredibly strong case, especially since I had documented proof of the affair. She explained that while our state was a no-fault divorce state, meaning I didn't technically need to prove adultery to get divorced, having this evidence would help significantly when it came to asset division and ensuring I got everything I deserved. We discussed strategy, and she advised me to keep gathering evidence, but not to confront either of them yet. We needed to make sure all our ducks were in a row financially and legally before dropping the bomb. Patricia also suggested I document everything going forward, every lie, every suspicious behavior, every time Marcus said he was somewhere he wasn't. This would protect me if things got ugly in court. Armed with this advice, I went home and started going through our financial records looking for anything suspicious. What I found made me even angrier. Marcus had taken out a credit card I didn't know about and racked up nearly $12,000 in charges. Hotels, restaurants, jewelry stores, even a weekend trip to Napa Valley that he definitely didn't take with me. He had been using our joint income to fund an entire secret relationship while I was carefully budgeting and saving for our future. I photographed every statement, every receipt, every piece of evidence I could find and sent it all to Patricia. Then I did something that felt both petty and necessary. I went into our bedroom and looked through Marcus's belongings. Tucked away in his sock drawer, I found a key to what I assumed was the downtown hotel room he had been using, and tucked in his jacket pocket, I found a receipt for an expensive necklace purchased 2 weeks ago that I had never seen. He had given it to Rachel, obviously, another gift bought with money that should have been going toward our future together. You might be wondering why I didn't just confront him immediately, why I was playing this long game instead of screaming and throwing him out the moment I saw that first text message. But here's the thing. I had learned from watching too many friends go through divorces that whoever keeps their cool and thinks strategically comes out better in the end. If I had confronted them right away in a rage, Marcus could have had time to hide assets, move money around, or even try to turn things around on me by claiming I was unstable or unreasonable. I needed everything documented, everything secured before I made my move. So I continued playing the devoted wife. When Marcus came home Friday evening, I greeted him with a smile and a kiss, asked him how his business trip went, and listened to him lie straight to my face about meetings and client dinners, and how much he missed me the whole time. Inside I was screaming, but outside I was calm, collected, even cheerful. That weekend was one of the strangest of my life. I went through all the motions of our normal routine. Made breakfast, went grocery shopping together, watched movies on the couch while Marcus had his arm around me the whole time. I kept thinking about him doing these same things with Rachel, sitting on a couch in that hotel room, watching movies with her, his arm around her shoulders instead of mine. It was surreal, like I was watching my life from outside my body, seeing this woman who looked like me acting like everything was fine when really her entire world had shattered into a million pieces. But I kept the mask on because I had a plan and I was going to see it through no matter how much it hurt in the moment. On Sunday, Rachel texted me asking if I wanted to meet for brunch the next weekend like we did almost every month. I stared at that text for a long time, feeling a mixture of rage and disgust at her audacity to pretend everything was normal, to act like my friend while she was sleeping with my husband. But I texted back, "Sure, sounds great," because I wasn't ready to tip my hand yet. Over the next 2 weeks, I continued gathering evidence and preparing for what was coming. Patricia had me open my own bank account, transfer my portion of our savings, secure important documents like our marriage certificate, mortgage papers, car titles, and make copies of everything. She also had me start documenting our assets, the house, the cars, our retirement accounts, investment portfolios, everything we owned together, so we would know exactly what needed to be divided. I felt like a spy in my own life, sneaking around taking photos of documents, transferring money while Marcus was at work or in the shower, making secret phone calls to my attorney from my car during my lunch break. It was exhausting but also empowering because for the first time since I saw that text message, I felt like I had some control over the situation instead of just being a victim of their betrayal. The breaking point came on a Thursday evening 3 weeks after I first discovered the affair. I had told Marcus I was going to a teacher's workshop that would run late and I wouldn't be home until after 9, but really I had hired a private investigator that Patricia recommended to follow Marcus and document what he did when he thought I was gone. I watched from my car parked down the street as Marcus left our house at 6:30, dressed nicer than he ever dressed for me anymore, got into his car and drove to an apartment complex on the other side of town. The investigator followed him and sent me photos in real time of Marcus walking up to a second-floor apartment, knocking, and Rachel answering the door in a silk robe. They kissed in the doorway, a long passionate kiss like something out of a movie, and then he went inside. The investigator stayed for 3 hours taking time-stamped photos of Marcus's car in the parking lot, the lights on in Rachel's apartment, the silhouettes occasionally visible through the curtains. And when Marcus finally left at 9:45, looking disheveled and happy, the investigator captured that too. I sat in my car looking at those photos on my phone, feeling absolutely nothing. No tears, no anger, just a cold, empty feeling where my heart used to be. This was it, the final piece of evidence I needed, the undeniable proof that would make it impossible for either of them to lie or manipulate or try to make me feel like I was overreacting. I drove home and got there before Marcus did, went inside, took a shower and got into bed. When he came home 20 minutes later smelling like Rachel's perfume, he slipped into bed next to me and whispered that he loved me. I didn't respond, just pretended to be asleep while my mind raced through everything that was about to happen. Because tomorrow everything would change. Tomorrow I would stop being the victim and start being the woman who took back her life. Friday morning, I woke up early before Marcus's alarm went off and went through my normal routine. Made coffee, got dressed for work, packed my lunch like any other day. When Marcus came downstairs, I had breakfast ready for him, and we ate together, making small talk about our plans for the weekend. He mentioned maybe we could have Rachel over for dinner on Saturday, since we hadn't seen her in a while. The audacity of that statement almost made me laugh, but I just smiled and said that sounds nice. We should grill out if the weather's good. He kissed me goodbye, told me he loved me, and headed off to work, completely oblivious to the fact that his entire life was about to implode. I waited until his car was out of sight, then I called in sick to work and got to business. First, I went to the bank and withdrew the remaining money from our joint account that I was entitled to, leaving only Marcus's half, which he wouldn't be able to access until the divorce was filed, but by then it wouldn't matter. Then I drove to our house and started packing my things. I had already secured a furnished apartment across town that I could move into immediately, and I had taken the day off work specifically for this purpose. I packed up my clothes, my personal items, my books, anything that was solely mine, and loaded it all into a moving truck I had rented that morning. I took half the furniture that we had bought together, the stuff from my side of the family, anything with sentimental value that I didn't want him to have access to. I even took the good coffee maker because he had never appreciated good coffee anyway, and I had been the one to buy it with my own money for my birthday 3 years ago. By 2 in the afternoon, the house looked noticeably emptier, and I felt a sense of satisfaction seeing the physical evidence of my departure. Before I left, I did one final thing. I printed out copies of all the text messages, the credit card statements, the hotel receipts, the photos from the private investigator, and I put them in a folder on the kitchen table along with divorce papers that Patricia had prepared and a note that simply said, "I know everything. My lawyer will be in contact. Do not try to reach me." Then I walked out of that house for the last time, took off my wedding ring and left it on the kitchen counter next to the folder, and drove away to start my new life. I went in my new apartment, unloaded all my things, and then I did something I had been planning for weeks. I sent a group message to all of our mutual friends, about 20 people, including some of Marcus's coworkers and Rachel's other friends. The message included a selection of the text messages between Marcus and Rachel with a simple explanation that I was getting divorced because my husband had been having an affair with my best friend for 6 months, and I wanted everyone to know the truth before they started spreading lies about me. I knew it was petty, I knew it was vindictive, but I also knew that if I didn't control the narrative, they would paint me as the bad guy somehow, and I refused to let that happen. The responses started coming in within minutes. Shock, horror, support, offers to help. People I had known for years expressing their disgust at what Marcus and Rachel had done. Several of Marcus's coworkers messaged me privately saying they had suspected something was going on, but didn't know how to tell me. A few of Rachel's friends admitted they had seen her with a mysterious man she refused to identify, and now it all made sense. The best response came from Marcus's sister, who I had always gotten along with really well. She messaged me saying she was appalled by her brother's behavior, that she completely supported me in the divorce, and that I would always be family to her regardless of what happened between Marcus and me. That message made me cry for the first time since I had discovered the affair, because it reminded me that not everyone in the world was a lying cheater, and that there were still good people who valued loyalty and honesty. Marcus started calling me around 4 in the afternoon. I assume he had come home for lunch or left work early and found the folder and the empty house. I didn't answer. I had blocked his number along with Rachel's number on my personal phone, but I could see his attempts to reach me through my work phone, which I kept for documentation purposes. He left voicemail after voicemail. At first angry, demanding to know what I thought I was doing, then panicked, begging me to talk to him so we could work this out, then desperate, crying and apologizing, saying it was a mistake and he loved me and we could get through this. I listened to every single voicemail once and then saved them all as evidence, but I never responded. Rachel tried reaching me too, through text messages from different numbers, through social media, through mutual friends, asking me to please talk to her so she could explain. I blocked every avenue she tried and told every mutual friend that if they continued to pass along messages from either Marcus or Rachel, I would cut them off too. I meant it. I was done being nice, done giving people the benefit of the doubt, done letting people walk all over me because I was afraid of being seen as difficult or dramatic. The divorce process took about 4 months, which was relatively quick according to Patricia, because we had no children and I had so much evidence that Marcus didn't even try to fight most of it. He initially wanted to keep the house, but I refused. I had put just as much money into that house as he had, and I had been the one maintaining it, decorating it, making it a home while he was off screwing my best friend in hotel rooms. We ended up selling it and splitting the proceeds 50-50, which was fine by me. I didn't want to live there anymore anyway. Too many memories, too much betrayal soaked into the walls. I got half of everything. Our savings, our retirement accounts, even the value of his company's stock options. And, because of the credit card debt he had racked up for the affair and the fact that I had proof he had been using marital funds to support his relationship with Rachel, I actually came out slightly ahead financially. Patricia was worth every penny I paid her. The most satisfying part of the whole thing was watching Marcus and Rachel's relationship implode in real time. Once our affair was public knowledge and they didn't have to sneak around anymore, the thrill was gone apparently. Within 2 months of my moving out, they were already fighting, according to mutual friends who loved updating me on the drama. Marcus had moved into Rachel's apartment since I had taken my stuff from our house, and he didn't want to live there alone, surrounded by the evidence of what he had destroyed. But living together full-time instead of just hooking up in hotels turned out to be very different. Rachel apparently had habits that drove Marcus crazy. She was messy, left dishes everywhere, spent money recklessly, and had a tendency to flirt with other men even when Marcus was right there. Marcus, on the other hand, became increasingly controlling and jealous, probably because he knew firsthand that Rachel was capable of betraying someone she claimed to love. Their fights were legendary according to friends, loud enough that neighbors complained, and on at least 2 occasions the police were called for noise disturbances. By the time our divorce was finalized, Marcus and Rachel had broken up. She moved to a different city to get away from the judgment and gossip of our mutual friends, and Marcus ended up having to find a small apartment he could barely afford. Because between the divorce settlement, the credit card debt, and the fact that several of his coworkers now knew he was a cheater who had sabotaged his marriage, his career had taken a hit too. His company had a strict ethics policy, and while having an affair wasn't technically a fireable offense, it did affect his reputation, and he got passed over for a promotion he had been expecting. I heard through the grapevine that he was bitter and angry, blamed me for ruining his life by going public with the affair, claimed I had been vindictive and cruel, that I should have handled it privately like an adult. The irony of him calling me immature after what he did was not lost on anyone. As for me, I threw myself into rebuilding my life. I stayed in my apartment for a year, using the time to figure out who I was outside of being Marcus's wife, outside of being Rachel's best friend. I had built so much of my identity around those relationships that when they both exploded, I felt like I didn't know who I was anymore. Therapy helped a lot. My therapist, Dr. Stevens, was patient and kind and helped me work through not just the betrayal, but also the deeper issues of self-worth and boundaries that had allowed me to ignore red flags and accept less than I deserved. I started saying no to things I didn't want to do, started putting my needs first, started building a life that was mine and mine alone. I took up hobbies I had abandoned during my marriage, started painting again, joined a hiking group, made new friends who didn't know Marcus or Rachel, and therefore had no complicated loyalties or divided allegiances. About a year after the divorce was finalized, I started dating again. Nothing serious at first, just casual coffee dates and dinners to get back into the swing of things. I went on some truly terrible dates, including one guy who spent the entire evening talking about his ex-wife and another who brought his mother along as a surprise. But I also went on some good dates with interesting, kind men who restored my faith that not everyone was a cheating liar. It was during this time that I met Daniel at a mutual friend's birthday party. He was a veterinarian, funny and warm with kind eyes and an easy laugh. We talked for hours that night about everything from our favorite books to our worst dating stories, and when he asked for my number at the end of the evening, I gave it to him without hesitation. We started dating slowly, taking our time getting to know each other without the pressure of jumping into something serious right away. Daniel knew about my divorce, knew about the betrayal, and he never made me feel broken or damaged because of it. He was patient with my trust issues, understanding when I needed space, and consistent in showing up for me in ways Marcus never had. 2 years after my divorce, Daniel and I moved in together into a beautiful townhouse in a different neighborhood, far away from any memories of my old life. We adopted 2 cats and started building a life together that felt healthy and balanced and real in a way my marriage to Marcus never had. Daniel proposed on a random Tuesday evening while we were cooking dinner together. No grand gesture or elaborate plan, just him looking at me and saying, "I want to spend the rest of my life with you. Will you marry me?" I said yes without hesitation because I knew in my bones that this was right, that this was what love was supposed to feel like. Safe and steady and honest. We got married in a small ceremony with just close friends and family, and it was perfect. Everything my first wedding pretended to be but wasn't. And then 3 years after I had last spoken to either of them, Marcus reached out. It was a message on social media from a new account I didn't recognize at first. Just a simple, "Hey, I know you probably don't want to hear from me, but I really need to talk to you, please." I almost deleted it without responding, but curiosity got the better of me and I messaged back, "What do you want?" His response came quickly. "Can we meet for coffee? I have some things I need to say to you. I know I don't deserve your time, but I'm asking anyway." I talked to Daniel about it, and he said it was my decision, but he supported whatever I chose. I decided to meet Marcus, not because I owed him anything, but because I was curious about what could possibly make him reach out after all this time, and because I wanted him to see that I had moved on and was happy without him. We met at a coffee shop in a neutral part of town neither of us had any history with. When I walked in, Marcus was already there, and I barely recognized him. He looked older, tired, like the last 3 years had not been kind to him. There were lines on his face that hadn't been there before, and he had gained weight. Not a lot, but enough to be noticeable. I, on the other hand, was thriving. I had lost the stress weight I had carried during our marriage, my skin was clear, my eyes were bright, and I was wearing my wedding ring from Daniel, a beautiful simple band that I touched unconsciously as I sat down across from Marcus. "Thank you for meeting me," he said, looking genuinely grateful. I didn't respond, just waited for him to say whatever he needed to say. He took a deep breath and launched into what was clearly a prepared speech. He told me he had been in therapy, working through his issues, understanding why he had sabotaged our marriage. He admitted that the affair with Rachel had been about his own insecurity, his fear of commitment, his need for external validation, all the classic excuses that cheaters use. He said he regretted everything, that losing me was the biggest mistake of his life, and that he thought about me every day. Then came the real reason he had reached out. Marcus wanted me back. He said he had realized over the past 3 years that what we had was special, that he had thrown away something real for something fleeting and meaningless. He admitted that his relationship with Rachel had been a disaster, that they had brought out the worst in each other, and that he had been miserable ever since. He said he knew it was a long shot, but he hoped maybe we could try again, start fresh, build something better this time now that he had done the work to become a better person. I let him finish his entire speech without interrupting, and then I looked him right in the eye and started laughing. Not a cruel laugh exactly, but one of genuine disbelief at his audacity. "You cannot be serious," I said when I finally stopped laughing. "You actually think after everything you did, after you betrayed me with my best friend, after you lied to my face for months, after you used our money to fund your affair, after you made me question my sanity, that I would even consider taking you back?" Marcus looked stung but pressed on, saying he knew he had hurt me but people make mistakes and he had changed. He was different now. I cut him off right there. "Let me be very clear," I said, leaning forward. "I don't care if you're different. I don't care if you've been in therapy. I don't care if you regret what you did. You made a choice, and that choice ended our marriage permanently. I have moved on. I'm married to an incredible man who treats me with respect and honesty every single day. I'm happy, genuinely happy in a way I never was with you, even before I found out about the affair. So no, we will not be trying again. We will not be starting fresh. We will not be anything, because you and I are done and have been done for years. Marcus's face crumpled and he started to cry, saying he understood, but he just needed me to know how sorry he was and how much he still loved me. I stood up to leave and told him, I forgive you, not because you deserve it, but because I deserve peace. I hope you find whatever it is you're looking for, but you won't find it with me. Goodbye, Marcus. Then I walked out of that coffee shop and out of his life for good. I called Daniel from my car and told him everything, and he just said, I'm proud of you, and I can't wait to see you tonight. That evening when I got home, Daniel had ordered takeout from my favorite restaurant, and we sat on our couch with our cats curled up next to us, eating dinner and watching television, and I realized that this was what happiness looked like. Not the dramatic highs and lows of my marriage to Marcus, but the steady, comfortable joy of being with someone who chose me every single day. About 6 months after that coffee shop meeting, I got a message from Rachel. It was long and rambling, full of apologies and explanations about how sorry she was, and how she had been going through a hard time when the affair started, and how she knew she had destroyed our friendship, but she hoped someday I could forgive her. She said she was in therapy too, working on herself and understanding why she had done something so terrible to someone she loved. She claimed she thought about me all the time, missed our friendship, and wondered if there was any possible way we could ever reconnect, even just as acquaintances. I read the message 3 times trying to feel something. Anger, sadness, nostalgia for what we used to have. But all I felt was indifference. Rachel had been such a huge part of my life for so long, and now she was just a stranger, someone I used to know who had made a choice that ended our relationship. I thought about responding, thought about telling her exactly how much she had hurt me, but then I realized she already knew, and me rehashing it would only give her the closure she was looking for. So instead I did nothing. I didn't respond, didn't block her, just left the message on read and moved on with my life. Sometimes the best revenge is not caring anymore, is living well and being happy, and letting the people who hurt you fade into irrelevance. Now 5 years after the divorce, I can honestly say I'm grateful it happened. I'm grateful Marcus cheated because it showed me who he really was before we had kids, before we were even more financially intertwined, before I wasted even more years of my life on someone who didn't value me. I'm grateful Rachel betrayed me because it taught me that not everyone who calls themselves your friend actually has your best interests at heart, and it made me much more selective about who I let into my inner circle. I'm grateful for all of it because it led me here, to this life with Daniel, to this person I've become who is stronger, more confident, more sure of what she deserves and unwilling to settle for anything less. My life now is everything I always wanted but never quite had with Marcus. It's peaceful and stable and full of love and trust, and I wake up every day thankful that I had the strength to walk away from what was destroying me and build something better.